Hello everyone. Today's webinar is called Which Workflow Technology Should You Choose? It's focused on Nintex K2 and AgilePoint and things to take into consideration when choosing a workflow product. My name is Adam Puchek and I'm a workflow consultant here at Habanero. I focus on business processes, forms, and workflows. Our presentation today is scheduled to run for about 25 minutes with 5 minutes left at the end for any questions you may have. Our agenda is first a little bit about Habanero, why do an assessment, then a bit about the third-party products we'll be looking at, a high-level product overview, and lastly some assessment considerations. So first a bit about Habanero. We focus on customer, employee, and member portal solutions. About 3 years ago, we found that all of our core offerings could benefit from workflow and forms, and a new offering was formed. So what we're finding is we often get pulled into meetings to supplement solutions with BPM technology, and sometimes just to help out with process challenges. So why bother? Why are our clients doing this assessment? Well, it's what our clients want. We've been hearing for quite some time now that making business processes more efficient is a key focus. So I'll tell you, give you a couple of use case scenarios with workflow and forms. Last Christmas, I was called by a client, Janice, and she was in a bit of a dilemma. She had a huge stack of papers on her desk with a ton of leave requests for Christmas break, and she couldn't keep up with all the requests that were coming in, and mostly because she was always on the phone. So what was happening was an employee, when they wanted to take a leave, they'd fill out a form. While they're filling it out, they'd call up Janice and ask, "Hey Janice, can you check how much time I have left for a holiday for this year?" Janice would log into SAP, check for the employee, let them know. That person would fill out the form, scan it, send it to their manager. Manager would call up Janice. "Hey Janice, does this employee have this much time left?" Janice would have to log into SAP again because this is a week later and she doesn't remember, and let them know, the manager know, yes, no, and so on and so forth. So as you can probably imagine, like, Janice is handling a couple thousand employees, and before a busy time like Christmas, she couldn't possibly keep up. So what are her options? Well, either hire someone to help her out or improve the process, and that's where we came in. So the solution, first off, balance tracking on the start form. So the employee right off the bat can see how many days they have left. They don't have to call up Janice. Approval workflow, so then it goes to, once the employee submits their form, goes to the manager for approval or rejection. The manager, same thing, can see all the balances he needs to see, he or she needs to see, approves or rejects, and then it goes to Janice, and Janice enters the information into SAP. Next iteration is to integrate that, even Janice's part, into SAP so that she doesn't have to rekey information into SAP. So what has this done? It's just freed up a ton of painful work for Janice. It's made people know more rapidly if they have their holiday or their leave, and yeah, it's freed up Janice to do much more meaningful work. Another situation, most of you guys will have experience with this, the onboarding process. In this particular instance, one of our clients called us up and said, "Hey, it takes us 21 people to hire a lawyer. We need to figure this out." So the business process was completely paper-based, very manual. They had to integrate stuff into information into 5 different systems. There was a lot of rekeying. Once in a while there'd be an error. The workflow was essentially driven by HR and through email. So if HR needed something, they'd email a department. The department would email back, say, "Hey, we're done our task." HR would email the next task to the next department, and so on and so forth. So they were driving the whole thing. And this is a business process that has been created over literally 100 years. So the firm's been around for a while. So the solution, well, first thing, take technology out of it. Get everyone in the same room, run a workshop, and figure out the actual flow. So what does this look like? So that was the hard part, for sure. And once we had the flow down, wasn't that big of a deal to put it into a workflow and using BPA technology. And now, as a result, there's less errors because there's no rekeying. There's integration into these systems. There's greater visibility for HR. They can see at a glance where the process is hung up on, which department, which person. and it's consistent from hire to hire. So the lawyer has the same experience from the next lawyer while being hired at this company. So our clients, they're looking for the next Swiss Army knife. They're looking for a tool that can handle their current and future situations. Some of our clients, they're break-fix companies, but standards have improved over the years. And while the business processes aren't changing drastically, they do change, and custom-coded solutions are really expensive to make changes to. So why third-party products? SharePoint already has workflow, it has forms, and most of our clients have InfoPath. So why are we looking at K2, Nintex, or AgilePoint for our clients? Well, so a little bit about SharePoint Workflow, and for most of our clients, there's just too many limitations. For example, there's no linked history after 60 days, which is a problem for our clients who need auditing or have business processes that take longer than 60 days. There's limited task handling, so things are handled more through notifications instead of task accountability. There's very little integration with other business systems without custom coding. And the workflow engine has changed way too much from version to version, SharePoint version to SharePoint version. So from 2007 to 2010 to 2013, the actual engine has changed, making it very difficult to migrate business processes. And for the most part, clients having to recreate their solutions from version to version. So a little bit about InfoPath. As most of you have probably heard, Microsoft announced this year that the end of life for InfoPath is 2023. That's when they no longer support it. As well as that, SharePoint 2013, this is the last InfoPath version. So next version of SharePoint, it'll be the same version of InfoPath, which isn't ideal. And also, InfoPath doesn't support mobile, which is a major ask of our clients these days. And SharePoint forms. So they're difficult to customize content. You can't easily apply company branding to the list forms. And the forms can't handle validation logic, just to name a few things. So what's best for our clients? Our clients, they come from different verticals. They all have different needs, and they have access to different resources. So some have a development team, and some don't. So what products are we looking at? As I mentioned, we're looking at K2, AgilePoint, and Nintex. So why? Well, they're definitely the major players in the workflow space, and they are market leaders. And just a quick note for this presentation, I'm assessing the enterprise versions of each product, not the light versions, as that's what our clients are generally purchasing. So one thing that's really important when we're looking at these technologies is making sure they can handle simple, moderate, and complex business processes. So I'm now into the high-level product overview of each one. So first off is K2. They're formed in 2000. They currently have more than 300 employees across all continents. They're currently based in Bellevue, Washington, and they have many global partners. So an overview of K2. K2 is good for more complex environments. It easily integrates with SharePoint and other line of business such as SAP and PeopleSoft. It's also a standalone product when it's not reliant on any other system. They probably have the best story for on-premise, cloud, and hybrid solutions out of the three products we're looking at today. And K2 is really great for long-running processes, so a process that might take a month or a year to complete. The support experience. What's it like for your support team to handle the workflows and forms? K2 has something called K2 Workspace. It's a central area that provides system administrators a dashboard to oversee the entire system, which makes this really great for troubleshooting across the entire farm. K2, they have a really good online support, so lots of partners contribute to the online community as well as users of K2. K2 also has many webinars and online training sessions to support its users. They also have a ticketing system that allows for unlimited incidents, and they even have an emergency support hotline, so an end user can call at any time if they're running into a problem. Another really nice feature of K2 is that when a workflow errors, it can be started where it left off. So inevitably, workflows do fail. Say, for example, you're trying to integrate into SAP and for whatever reason it's down, the workflow might fail. It's really nice to be able to get SAP back up and then start the workflow off exactly where it ended off. So that's a very good feature of K2. User experience. What's it like for the end users to use K2? So for the most part, it's really intuitive product. The forms are really nice to use, as you can see. Pretty easy. It's also really intuitive for end users to fire off workflows and to complete their tasks. K2 includes a SharePoint web part that renders the user's task lists in one area. They also have a nice, easy to use context menu with options to action or view tasks and to see a workflow's progress for the power users in your organization. Another nice feature of K2 is one could approve a task through email without logging into any system. So approve or reject something right from their email. This is really nice for mobile. Designer, what's it like to build out workflows and forms? So K2 has 3 different designers. First is called K2 Studio. It's a desktop application, installed application. And this is good for power users. It's a pretty decent experience. Second is K2 Designer. This is for simple processes. It's based on Silverlight and it's a web-based designer. You also have to build out all your forms in this environment. And finally, Visual Studio. This is the environment that realistically you're going to spend your most time in when building out workflows. Developers were like this. For all 3, it's to create a workflow or a form. It's more time consuming than the other 3 products because it's all a wizard-driven process. But this also has its pros because it means that it's much easier to ramp up on this product because the wizard guides you through setting up each action. We figure that somebody with technical aptitude could be 80% proficient within a month. Workflow experience, some of the stuff about the workflow. And one thing, just a little note here, one thing you'll find through this presentation is for K2, AgilePoint, and Nintex, you'll see that the products are all very similar from a workflow experience. They're all very strong. So one feature that K2 has is customizable approval paths. So this is for tasks. They also have email reminders and the ability to autocomplete or delegate, just to name a few features there. They also have something called conditional triggers. So a workflow can be kicked off if a column status changes, for example. And they have many actions, everything from managing Active Directory tasks to provisioning SharePoint sites, managing permissions, and many, many other things. And if they don't have an action that you need, you can create your own custom workflow actions, which is a nice feature. Form experience. So K2 for forms, this is where the product really shines. It's definitely the best of the 3 for complex forms. If you need smart forms that need to access multiple systems at the same time, take a hard look at K2. As I mentioned before, the building the forms is dependent on the on K2 Designer, which isn't the best experience because it's based off of Silverlight. For the end users, you can create a wizard-like experience for the form, so it's intuitive to fill out a form step to step. The forms are also rendered in HTML5, which means they can be displayed anywhere, such as mobile or in Salesforce or SharePoint. Another nice feature, you can save or print forms. So if an end user needs to come back, they're in the middle of something and they have to come back to it, they can save that form and come back to it, and it's everything is still there. Another great feature of K2 Forms is, as I mentioned, the reading and writing to line of business systems on the fly without using a workflow. So this is really a powerful feature. So a bit about Nintex. Formed in 2000, they have approximately 200 employees. They have offices international, also based in Bellevue, Washington. And they're used by 200 of the Fortune 500 companies. So a differentiator of Nintex from the other 2, it is completely dependent on SharePoint, so it runs on top of it. It can't run without SharePoint. Nintex has a powerful workflow engine that interacts really well with other line of business systems outside of SharePoint. And they have a good mobile and cloud story. Nintex is the only product of these 3 that can currently handle offline forms. So this is really important for some of our clients, especially the mining clients, when they need to fill out safety forms. They're going underground. There is no Wi-Fi. They can fill out their offline form in an Nintex environment. They come up above ground, it syncs with their SharePoint environment, and workflow can run on that stuff. So that's a pretty compelling feature of Nintex right now. And they have an on-premise solution and a cloud solution for Office 365. So their support experience. So Nintex doesn't have a central administration like the other two products, but that being said, it is easy to handle workflows by creating customized workflow histories to log out information needed to troubleshoot and for auditing purposes. They also have verbose logging, which is a nice feature for getting detailed information about what's going on in a workflow. So this makes it pretty easy to troubleshoot individual workflows. With regards to their some more support experience, they have unlimited support incidents, so unlimited tickets through Nintex. There's also a ton of resources online for Nintex users wanting to teach themselves. It's possible to become an expert in Nintex just by learning from online resources. The user experience is pretty intuitive to fire off workflows and to complete tasks. Task lists are surfaced in SharePoint as web parts. And there's a strong task functionality with multiple paths, delegation, reminders, and they have something called lazy approval, which means that one could approve or reject a task from the email system, same as K2. For the power users, it's really easy to see the workflow history in detail and visually. Sometimes this is really nice for the power users so they know where a process is at. For designing workflows, it's really intuitive for one with technical aptitude. It's a very good reason actually to choose Nintex because a strong BA with technical ability could actually build out workflows and forms. It's definitely the easiest to pick up of the three. We figured that one could be an expert in Nintex within 3 months, especially if they have SharePoint experience already. So the designer, it's based. They only have a web-based designer, and it's in SharePoint. So again, the workflow experience. They also handle multiple customizable approval paths, such as approve, reject, send back for rework. Workflows can be built to handle long-running workflows, although it has to be taken into consideration when you're building onto workflows. This makes it not as flexible and robust as K2 or AgilePoint, who take this into consideration. They also have many actions available: AD integration, SharePoint lists, sites, CRM integration, and if they don't have an action, they have web services, so you can use a web service action to connect to whatever system you want, as long as they support it. Form experience, building out forms is really intuitive to build for the developers and really intuitive to use for the end users. That being said, it is limited in capability compared to AgilePoint or K2, especially with regards to integration into other line of business systems. You can do it with Nintex, but you have to use custom code on the forms, which isn't ideal. They have a very good mobile story. Forms can be designed for various devices, but you do have to configure each form one by one for each device. And when, say, an iPhone connects to your SharePoint environment, the engine detects that it's an iPhone and displays the appropriate form. Again, they have offline forms. This is a really big deal for some of our clients. And branding. It's easy to create default branding across your forms. AgilePoint. It's formed in 2003. They have approximately 75 employees. They're based in Mountain View, California, and currently they have over 75 worldwide partners. So AgilePoint, probably the best part about it is its strong integration story with line of business systems, including SharePoint, Oracle, and SAP. It's also a standalone product like K2. This is also a really great feature of AgilePoint. It has process agility. You can change an in-flight business process that's running, and if, say, you're on step 4 or 5 of a business process and step 5 has changed because it's a year-long process, you can change step 5, and AgilePoint will continue the process along that new path seamlessly. It's a very powerful and compelling reason to use AgilePoint. So this makes it really strong for long-running processes that are a month long or a year long. Cloud doesn't seem to be much of a focus for AgilePoint. They seem to prefer to focus on its on-premise solutions. Support experience, they have something called Enterprise Manager for system administrators to see what's going on with all of the system workflows. This makes it really good for troubleshooting. And they have good online support, good online community. You are limited to 20 support tickets for free. After that, you have to pay or negotiate for more. You'll use up those 20 support tickets pretty quick. For the user, the end user, if they're a power user, there's a decent visual representation for the end users to see where the business process is at. Task forms can be designed to be intuitive and they're simple to complete. For designing, what's it like for your developers? It's pretty intuitive for one with technical aptitude. It uses Microsoft Visual as its designers, which developers might find frustrating. Power users, however, will be able to build out simple processes easy enough in this environment. It's not as easy to pick up as Nintex, but it is possible to be 80% proficient in a month. They also have many actions available to use. Workflow, again, similar functionality to the other two products. They have a really good integration story with products like PeopleSoft or SAP. The forms piece. So a nice feature of AgilePoint, you can save a form or have a printer-friendly view if people need to print out their form. It can also read and write to different line of business systems and surface information on the fly. So pricing, I wanted to talk a little bit about pricing because these questions always come up when I do these presentations. So pricing changes from client to client based on their environments. So amount of servers, users, and other factors. Nintex, K2, and AgilePoint, they all have different pricing models. So if you are interested in pricing, reach out to your preferred partner. If you don't have one, you can either contact the product manufacturer, so K2, AgilePoint, or Nintex. They'll point you in the right direction, or feel free to give us a ring at Habanero, and we'll help you out with that, point you in the right direction. So some assessment considerations. What to consider when doing your own assessment. First off, pick an existing business process. Talk to your departments, HR, finance, IT, safety, operations, for example. They'll for sure have a business process that I'm sure they'd love to automate. So you want to make sure you take a moderately complex business process that you already have defined in the organization. Run workshops. Treat it like a real project. Involve business analysts, gather requirements, and come up with collateral, like flow diagrams, for example. Get vendor support. So get pricing from all three products for your environments. Make sure you get support from all three products and get them to set up environments for you to play in. All of them have trial programs and they should be able to set up virtual environments for your developers to try out the products. So build out a prototype. Build out the same solution in all three products. And while you're at it, document the experience for the people who can't be part of the process. This also helps the developers because as you're going from product to product, you tend to forget things about the previous one. So if they're documenting at the same time, this is a really, really compelling thing for people who can't be part of it. Questions. Come up with a question or a series of questions for each product that each product has to answer. So, for example, last time we did an assessment, we came up with 170 plus questions that each product had to answer. Then you want to figure out the relevance. How relevant is that question to your organization? So maybe rank that from 1 to 10 and set up a panel of people so you can have a discussion around each question. So 10 would be this is really important, and 1 this is not important to us at all. And then come up with a score for each question. So maybe do that from 1 to 5, and 1 being, okay, for this question, K2 or Nintex or AgilePoint can't do this at all, so that would be a 1. 3 would be, yeah, I can do it, but we'd have to do a bit of custom code or a workaround. And 5 would be, yeah, this does this out of box. Multiply those two together, and you'll come up with your results. This is nice. Coming up with a chart gives you a pretty high-level look at how each product competes against each other. What you will find, though, is all three will be up there because they're all really strong products. So some other things you need to think about. Cost of ownership. How much is it going to cost you to own this product over 5 years, for example? So Nintex is cheaper to build out workflows and solutions, but you're going to run into roadblocks faster. K2 is more expensive to build out. K2 and AgilePoint, it's more expensive to build out workflows and forms because you need a bigger team, but you're going to run into roadblocks a lot later down the road. So with Nintex, if you want to build out complex forms or complex workflows, you might have to go to custom code sooner, which is expensive. So kind of figure that out. Next is who's actually building out the solutions. Will it be consultants like Habanero building them out? Will it be your in-house IT? Do you want your business analyst to build these out, or do you have a development team? So I like this picture because it's they're all wearing the same shirt, but if you look closely, there's differences in the shirts. So it's the same with these products, right? They look very similar on the surface. They all do many of the same things. So try and compare the differences instead. As I mentioned, the closer you look, the more differences you're going to find. So just a few thoughts. None of these workflow products are very good at handling large volumes of data. For example, I guess it was about a year ago, I built out a workflow to handle a large amount of items, like 10,000 items in a list, and it took around 30 minutes for the workflow to finish to do something with each of those items. One of my coworkers came by and said, you can just write a little bit of code to do that for you, and we got it down to about 10 seconds doing this exact same thing. So just keep that in mind. Workflow can't do everything. Sometimes it is better and cheaper to build out custom code. The other thing that none of these are good at is trying to kick off 1,000 workflows at once. You're going to need to go custom, otherwise you'll pin your servers. They can't handle that kind of processing. Workflows, as I mentioned a few times now, the workflow products are all very similar. They're very strong for all three products. If you need to find differences, look to the forms. That's where they're more different. Also with their cloud solutions and mobile solutions. All of them are rapidly growing, and they're adding functionality constantly, which is really great. It's really nice to see. A year ago, all three products were very different, and a year from now, I'm sure they'll also be quite a bit different. So keep an eye on it, and it is worth going through this assessment. Some high-level conclusions. There's a ton of content around this topic, and hopefully I've provided a bit more clarity and not just more confusion. But so just some high-level tidbits for you. So Nintex, really great for offline forms. It's the only product right now that supports offline forms. It's also the most user-friendly. It's the easiest to ramp up on and to build out simple workflows and forms. So that's pretty compelling for smaller clients, for example, that want their BAs to build out workflows and forms, just basic processes. K2, if you need robust forms that need to push and pull information to different line of business systems, take a look at K2. It's really strong at that. It's also the furthest along with products that work on-premise in the cloud and with the hybrid approach. And finally, AgilePoint, really great for long-running processes, especially if your processes are changing constantly. And that wraps up this webinar. Thanks for joining me. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at my email address there. And yeah, take care.